The heartbreaking waterfalls of Iceland. Imagine a land shaped by fire and ice, where waterfalls plunge from ancient cliffs into surreal, mist-filled valleys, their roar echoing through the land like whispers from a distant past. This is Iceland, where every waterfall tells a story of glacier, volcanoes, and the timeless dance of nature's raw power. If you've ever wondered how these majestic falls came to be, what secrets they hold, and why millions travel to witness their awe-inspiring beauty, stay tuned. Today, we're diving deep into the origins, formation, history, and preservation of Iceland's waterfalls, some of the most stunning natural wonders on Earth. Trust me, by the end, you'll be planning your own journey to see them for yourself. Iceland is a geological wonderland, and its waterfalls are one of the country's most captivating features. There are over 10,000 waterfalls scattered across this island, each more stunning than the last. From towering cascades that tumble down dramatic cliffs to smaller, tranquil falls that seem almost hidden in the landscape, these natural phenomena are integral to Iceland's identity. But how did they form? What makes them so unique? And how have they been preserved for future generations? The story of Iceland's waterfalls begins millions of years ago when the island itself was born out of volcanic activity. Iceland sits on the mid-Atlantic ridge, where the North American and Eurasian tectonic plates are slowly pulling apart. Over the millennia, volcanic eruptions have built up the island's rugged landscape, while glaciers have carved deep valleys through the terrain. The interplay between volcanic rock, glacier, and rivers is what gives birth to waterfalls. As the glacier advance and retreat, they carve out deep gorges and valleys, shaping the landscape. When rivers flow from the glacier or highlands, they often reach the edge of these cliffs or fall into the gorges, creating waterfalls. In simple terms, Iceland's waterfalls are the result of volcanic activity that built the island and created the cliffs. Glacial movement that carved valleys and basins. Melting glacier and rainfall that feed the rivers. Each waterfall in Iceland has its own story of formation. For instance, Dettifoss, Europe's most powerful waterfall, is fed by the glacier Vatnajökull, and its massive flow is due to the vast amounts of water from glacial melt. In contrast, Skogafoss, one of the most iconic, drops 60 meters over an ancient sea cliff that used to mark the island's coastline thousands of years ago. These cliffs are now inland due to geological uplift and erosion. Icelanders are incredibly proud of their natural heritage, and the country's waterfalls are fiercely protected. There's a deep cultural connection to nature in Iceland, and this has shaped both conservation efforts and tourism policies. Most waterfalls are part of national parks or protected areas. For example, Gullfoss, one of the most famous waterfalls in Iceland, is part of the Golden Circle, a protected area that ensures the falls remain untouched by large-scale development. In the early 20th century, there were plans to harness Gullfoss for hydroelectric power, but thanks to the determined efforts of a local woman, Sigríður Tómasdóttir, the waterfall was saved. Her fight to protect Gullfoss is legendary and symbolizes Iceland's modern-day commitment to conservation. In addition, strict environmental laws regulate tourist activity around the waterfalls. Visitors are encouraged to follow sustainable travel practices, such as staying on marked paths to protect the delicate moss and plant life that grow around the falls. Iceland's natural beauty is fragile, and tourism is carefully managed to preserve these pristine landscapes. Waterfalls in Iceland are more than just a pretty backdrop, they're woven into the country's history, mythology, and culture. Many waterfalls have their roots in ancient sagas and folklore. For instance, Gullfoss, meaning waterfall of the gods, is named after a pivotal moment in Iceland's history. In the year 1000, when Iceland officially converted to Christianity, it's said that the local chieftain threw his Norse pagan idols into the waterfall as a symbolic gesture of the nation's new faith. Then there's Heyfoss, one of the tallest waterfalls in Iceland, located near the historical farm of Jovaldispa. Its name means high waterfall, and it's said that early settlers considered the falls a place of reverence. The roar of the falls and the surrounding rugged cliffs give it an air of mysticism, and it's not hard to see why early Icelanders saw waterfalls as sacred places. In more recent history, waterfalls have played a critical role in Iceland's economy. With abundant rivers fed by glacial melt, the country has harnessed hydroelectric power to fuel its industries. This sustainable energy source is a cornerstone of Iceland's green energy initiatives. Yet, Iceland has been careful not to exploit its most precious waterfalls for this purpose, instead opting for smaller rivers to avoid damaging the iconic falls that attract millions of tourists. When people think of Iceland, they often picture dramatic waterfalls framed by vast, open landscapes. Waterfalls like Seljalandsfoss, where visitors can walk behind the cascade, or Svartifoss, which flows over striking black basalt columns, have become must-see destinations for travelers. Tourism has skyrocketed in Iceland over the past decade, and waterfalls are one of the primary draws. Each year, millions of visitors come to experience the raw beauty of these natural wonders. Whether it's the mighty power of Dettifoss or the serene charm of Hraunfossa, where water seeps through lava fields in countless rivulets, Iceland's waterfalls offer something for every kind of traveler. The popularity of Iceland's waterfalls is not without challenges. With increased foot traffic, there's always a risk of environmental damage. That's why many locations have implemented infrastructure improvements, like viewing platforms and designated paths, to minimize the impact of tourism while still allowing people to enjoy the beauty of these sites. Waterfalls like Glima, which requires a challenging hike through Iceland's rugged terrain, offer a more adventurous experience, attracting those who want to escape the crowds and immerse themselves in nature. It's this diversity, from easily accessible tourist hotspots to hidden gems off the beaten path, that keeps travelers coming back to Iceland, eager to discover more. Climate change presents a unique challenge for Iceland and its waterfalls. As global temperatures rise, glaciers are melting at unprecedented rates. This affects the water flow to many of the country's waterfalls, and there's concern that some falls could diminish in the coming decades if glaciers continue to recede. However, Iceland is also at the forefront of combating climate change. The country is one of the world's leaders in renewable energy, and its government has pledged to make Iceland carbon neutral by 2040. The hope is that through sustainable practices and environmental conservation, Iceland's waterfalls will continue to flow as magnificently as they do today, preserving them for future generations. Let's dive deeper into some aspects we touched upon earlier. The beauty of Iceland's waterfalls lies not just in their stunning visuals, but also in the fascinating geological, cultural, and environmental stories they tell. Iceland is often referred to as the land of fire and ice, for a good reason. It's one of the most geologically active places on Earth, with active volcanoes, geysers, and glaciers all playing a part in shaping the landscape. Most of Iceland's waterfalls are either plunge waterfalls, where water drops straight down from a cliff, or cascade waterfalls, where the water flows over a series of rocks or steps. The sheer variety of waterfalls in such a small country is astonishing, and this is thanks to the volcanic activity and glaciation that have created ideal conditions for waterfall formation. One key geological feature of Iceland is basalt columns. These hexagonal rock formations are the result of ancient lava flows that cooled very slowly, allowing the rocks to crack into these unique shapes. Svartifoss, one of the most famous waterfalls in Iceland, flows over a backdrop of dark basalt columns, giving it a striking, otherworldly appearance. These columns are also found at Aldeyjarfoss, another must-see waterfall, where the contrast between the black rock and the white, rushing water creates a dramatic scene. In your video, you can emphasize how Iceland's geological history has left a permanent mark on the landscape. You could even dive deeper into how volcanic activity continues to shape the land, potentially giving birth to future waterfalls as the land evolves. This angle could add a sense of timelessness to your video, highlighting how nature's processes are ongoing and ever-changing. In addition to their geological importance, Iceland's waterfalls have a deep connection to its mythology and folklore. Icelanders have always been storytellers, and the landscape plays a starring role in many of their ancient sagas. Waterfalls were often seen as places of mystical power and were believed to be home to various supernatural beings like elves and trolls. One of the most famous tales is associated with Gothos, as mentioned before. However, you could expand this by exploring other legendary stories tied to waterfalls. For example, Icelandic folklore is filled with stories about hidden people, Holdjufolk, believed to live in the rocks and cliffs near waterfalls. These beings are said to be protectors of nature, and disturbing their homes could bring misfortune. This idea ties in beautifully with Iceland's modern-day approach to nature conservation. You could spin this as a continuation of an ancient respect for the land, where myths and traditions meet modern environmentalism. It would add a layer of cultural richness to your video, showing how these natural sites are not just visually stunning but also deeply woven into the fabric of Iceland's national identity. Another critical point to emphasize is Iceland's dedication to sustainability. The island has made significant strides toward renewable energy, harnessing geothermal and hydropower from its vast natural resources. Iceland generates nearly 100% of its electricity from renewable sources, with hydropower from rivers and waterfalls playing a key role. Hydropower in Iceland is a balancing act. While the country has developed hydropower stations to generate energy, it has taken great care to protect its most iconic waterfalls. The government is highly selective about which rivers and waterfalls can be tapped for energy to ensure that the country's natural beauty remains intact. This could be an exciting twist for your video, highlighting how Iceland leads the way in clean energy while preserving its waterfalls for future generations. An interesting example is the controversy surrounding the harnessing of the Karanjuka hydropower plant in eastern Iceland. While this project has provided significant renewable energy for the country, it also raised concerns about the environmental impact on nearby landscapes. You could touch on the complexities of balancing energy needs with nature conservation, sparking a conversation in your audience about sustainable energy practices globally. While Iceland's famous waterfalls like Seljalandsfoss, Skogafoss, and Gullfoss attract thousands of tourists, there are also hidden gems that offer a more intimate and less crowded experience. These lesser-known waterfalls often require more effort to reach, but the journey is part of the adventure. For instance, Glyma is Iceland's second tallest waterfall, yet it remains relatively off the beaten path. Reaching Glyma involves a challenging hike through a moss-covered gorge, across rivers, and under low-hanging caves. The trek offers stunning views of the surrounding fjord and river valley, making it one of Iceland's best-kept secrets. Another lesser-known waterfall is Hengifoss, located in East Iceland. This waterfall cascades down a cliff lined with red clay and black basalt, creating a layered effect that reflects Iceland's volcanic history. The hike to Hengifoss takes you past several smaller waterfalls, each more beautiful than the last. Highlighting these hidden waterfalls could appeal to adventure travelers and nature enthusiasts who want to explore beyond the main tourist sites. One unique aspect of Iceland's waterfalls is how they change with the seasons. In winter, many waterfalls become encrusted with ice, creating a breathtaking frozen landscape. Gullfoss, for example, takes on a surreal beauty as ice forms around the cascading water, and the surrounding area becomes blanketed in snow. However, these icy conditions also create hazards, making some waterfalls inaccessible during the winter months. In contrast, summer brings long days of sunlight, allowing visitors to experience the waterfalls under the glow of the midnight sun. Glacial meltwater swells the rivers during this time, creating even more powerful waterfalls. Dettifoss is especially impressive during summer, as the increased flow from the Vatnajökull glacier makes it thunder even more dramatically than in other seasons. In your video, you could compare how different waterfalls transform throughout the year, offering viewers insight into what to expect depending on when they visit. This seasonal contrast could make the video more dynamic and visually diverse, showing the waterfalls in both their winter and summer glory. Iceland's glacier, which feed many of its waterfalls, are retreating due to climate change. Scientists predict that some of Iceland's smaller glacier could disappear entirely within the next century, which would inevitably affect the waterfalls they feed. While larger falls like Dettifoss are less likely to disappear soon, their water levels could decrease if the glacier continue to shrink. Ending your video with a reflection on climate change's impact on Iceland's waterfalls could inspire your audience to take action in their own lives to combat global warming. By highlighting Iceland's efforts to preserve its natural beauty, you can connect this local issue to the global challenge of protecting the environment. Encouraging viewers to visit responsibly, reduce their carbon footprint, and support conservation efforts adds a layer of depth and purpose to your content. It transforms your video from merely informative to thought-provoking, leaving your audience with a powerful message. In Iceland, waterfalls are more than just a natural phenomenon, they are part of the nation's soul. From their volcanic origins to their role in the country's history, these breathtaking cascades are a testament to the power of nature. Whether you're marveling at the thunderous roar of Dettifoss or standing in awe of the rainbow-filled spray of Gullfoss, there's no denying that Iceland's waterfalls leave an indelible mark on all who visit. So, as you plan your next adventure, remember that these waterfalls are more than just Instagram-worthy backdrops. They are living monuments to the forces that have shaped our planet over millions of years, and they are waiting for you to discover their magic. Waterfalls are more than just a breathtaking spectacle, they are living symbols of the forces that shape our planet, reminders of both nature's beauty and its fragility. As we gaze in awe at these stunning creations, it's important to remember that they need our protection now more than ever. Iceland's waterfalls are timeless, but they are also vulnerable. Let's do our part to preserve their magic for future generations. Thank you for watching, and if you found this journey through Iceland's waterfalls inspiring, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with fellow nature lovers.